Was it by? I totally forgot who wrote this. Will it be a villain? I don't know. I need to find out. Oh my god. Okay, I'm tearing up. Why am I tearing up? And I was like, Mom, I'm crying because this book is too much. Hello book reading friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Melanie and today I bring you a holiday book gift guide, the top 20 books to buy this holiday season. I am more than excited to do this video. I have been getting questions everywhere from live streams to social media as to what books I recommend you add to your Christmas wish list because there are so many options out there. So I have compiled a list of books that I have read and absolutely loved that I recommend you get this holiday season, and a selection of books I am also interested in because they sound absolutely incredible that I want to bring into your radar as well because they honestly, again, sound really good and you may be interested too. I tried to not go with the obvious answer, which I feel would be anything Sarah J. Maas or anything Cassandra Clare, and instead I've gone with books that I have, again, read and loved and enjoyed and would recommend left and right. I broke this video down into genres, so we have a little bit of everything. We have fantasy books, we've got sci-fi, we've got contemporary, we've got romance, thriller, horror, we've got a bunch of everything. So again, top 20 books to read, top 20 books to buy. That way all of you can find a little something to add to your Christmas wish list and hopefully get it this holiday season. If you have yet to subscribe to my channel, don't forget to do so down below for more bookish content. I am constantly uploading videos that I am sure you do not want to miss. I am also gonna be live streaming twice a week, Wednesdays and Fridays, so I'm sure you won't want to miss any of that. You can also follow me on all of my social medias, which are always linked down below. I am most active on Twitter, so that is probably the place to be. So yeah, without further ado, we are gonna be talking about a lot of books, so let's get right into it. I am not feeling my greatest today, so excuse me if I am not on par with the energy levels that I always have. It's also Mother's Day, and here I am filming because I am dedicated to get a video up tomorrow. So first and foremost, let us start with my favorite genre, my favorite category of books, and that is fantasy books. For all of you fantasy readers, this is what I'd recommend you add to your wish list this Christmas season. First off, I've got a more recent read, but one that I just absolutely adored, and I think it would be an awesome read for everyone out there. And I am talking about These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. I again finished this book recently and I cannot get this out of my mind. I don't know if I'd call this a fantasy in its entirety, but I would say this is more along the realms of magical realism with fantastical elements to it. This book is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. It is set in 1926 Shanghai. So we have a diverse cast of characters, which is always incredible to see. And in this version of this retelling, we have rival gangs, the Scarlet Gang and then the White Flowers. And we have Juliet, who is a part of the Scarlet Gang, and Roma, who is a part of the White Flowers. And the romance in this book is enemies to lovers to enemies in a way. It is all over the place. The story progression is so incredible. So suddenly when people from both sides of the gang start clawing their throats out, quite literally, very suddenly, Roma and Juliet need to put their guns aside and come together to try and figure out what type of monster is doing this to their people. Again, the atmosphere of this book is incredible. The character development, the craft of character in this book is just stunning. There's a lot of political intrigue that, from my understanding, is very accurate to what it looked like in 1920s Shanghai. One of my favorites this year, I enjoyed this to no end, is Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. This book is just everything I want from a Latinx author, but writing in a fantastical setting. The main character of this book is called Yadriel, and he is a trans boy who is struggling with his family to accept his true gender and to accept him as a true brujo. To accomplish that mission, he pairs up with his cousin Maritza to try and raise a ghost of a dead family member. However, it all goes a little bit wrong when he instead summons the ghost of the town's resident bad boy called Julian Diaz. And Julian has no idea why he died, how he died, when he died, and so he will not go back to the dead very peacefully. And he is demanding that Yadriel and Maritza help him figure out exactly what happened to him so he can go to rest peacefully. It was just so stunning. The atmosphere in this book was so well crafted. I could smell the food food. I could picture myself in all of these places. The romance also was so well paced for the amount of time that this book takes place in. The characters, I would die for these characters, you guys. Like, these characters are so good. Like, Maritza, her banter is stunning. Julian and Yadriel, like, the connection that they develop throughout the book is like, it's unmatched to anything I've ever read. And the way that Aidan Thomas also grabbed Latinx culture, particularly Mexican culture, and warped that in a way that it fit a fantastical setting was just so incredible to see. Like, the creativity and the talent to whip up a story like this was just absolutely incredible. I enjoyed my time so much. Again, another book that is tabbed and annotated. And also, if you're looking for something a little bit more special, Barnes & Noble has this Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. Compared to this one, which is the copy that you can get from any bookstore, some books that I recently did a reading blog for that I will link down below in case you want to check it out if you haven't already, that I recommend you get this holiday season. These books are just incredible. They are From Blood and Ash and A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, both by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is her latest new adult fantasy romance. For those of you who enjoy yourselves a little fantasy, but with a little heavier romance, these books deliver in all of that. And we do follow Poppy, who's a maiden who was chosen by the gods from the womb, and Poppy is connected to every ascension in the kingdom. Therefore, she is seen as almost this godlike figure who cannot be touched, who cannot be addressed, who cannot be approached. And so the king and queen, in order to ensure her ascension, assign her a royal guard called Hawk Flynn to protect her at all costs, to make sure that she gets to that day that is so important for the entire kingdom. And once she meets Hawk, she starts feeling things that she has almost been forbidden to feel for her entire life. Things like passion and lust and love. And that is where the story develops. It is so nice. I would say the second book is more along the lines of hate to love. Like, that line is very much blurred in the second book. The smut in here is A-level. Like, I absolutely loved it. If you couldn't tell from the empty space above me, the next book I'm going to be talking about is actually The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Now this trilogy is complete. The Burning God came out in November, so you can either ask for the entire trilogy or just for the first book, but this is definitely something that I recommend you read. It is an adult fantasy / historical fiction, but honestly, the emotional damage this book leaves behind is just catastrophic. Like, it's so good. I still cannot believe R.F. Kuang wrote this at such a young age. Like, again, the talent. I also have a spoiler-free reading blog for this if you want to check it out. I will leave it linked down below. But essentially, in this book, we follow Rin, who is a peasant girl. She has always been the means to an end. She has been abused her entire life, and so she is very determined to get out of that hole. And so she studies and prepares to take an empire-wide test to choose the people who will go to military academies and join the army. She does a little bit better than expected, however, and she gets into the Synagogue, who is the most elite academy out of all of them. And now in this academy, she is being targeted by her gender, her color, and her poverty. And as Rin continues her journey in the Synagogue, she finds out that she possesses the ancient art of shamanism, which is kind of forbidden in this world. And the god calling upon her is the Phoenix, who wants nothing more than vengeance and bloodshed. And with a third Poppy War approaching, Rin may very well be the only way to stop the war and win. From the writing, which was so raw and real, from the characters, like, you connect with them on so many levels and you care for them so quickly because of their circumstances. And the book really paints the picture of war in what I believe is the most accurate way. It doesn't sugarcoat anything. It is inspired on the event of the rape of Nanking, and so there is a lot of historical context for this book and the second book. There is a lot of history woven into this plotline that elevates the story, and so overall it's just a stunning read. Now, for the last two books in the fantasy genre, I didn't realize that these last two books had to do with witches, but apparently it's something that I am very intrigued by at the moment. And the first one is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. This book has been kind of all over the place with the genre that it truly fits in. The one that I've heard the most is horror, but the way that the synopsis is crafted makes it seem more like a dark fantasy. So I'm just gonna categorize this as a dark fantasy that may or may not have horror elements to it. This book is set in the land of Bethel, where the prophet's word is law, and Emmanuel, who is the main character's very existence, is a blasphemy. Emmanuel is trying to lead a life of submission where she follows every rule, where she follows the holy protocol, and basically follows what every woman is doing in this town. However, one day Emmanuel stumbles onto Darkwood, which surrounds Bethel, and that is where the first prophet actually chased and killed a group of witches. Their spirits still lurk on the grounds, and they bestow a gift upon Emmanuel, which is the journal of her dead mother. Emmanuel goes on this deep journey inside this journal, trying to figure out how her mother could ever be in alliance with the witches. And once she starts that journey, she starts figuring out the dark secrets of the church and the things that surround Bethel as a town. Again, it just sounds so fascinating, the fact that there are witches, but it also involves this mysterious journal that contains information that may well make Emmanuel question the ways of the world and the way that society works around her. Just sounds, again, incredibly appealing. This is set, I believe, around the 1800s, so it is not current time, which is always super cool to read about. And the last book in the fantasy section, which is also surrounding witches apparently, is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Horrow. The book is set in 1893, and such thing as witches do not exist. As history would probably say, there were such a thing as witches before the burnings began. And now the only place where a woman can exercise her power is in the ballot box. So in this book, we follow the Eastwood sisters who joined the suffragist movement in New Salem. And soon enough, they start pursuing those forgotten words that may very well turn this woman movement into a witches movement. These sisters will go deeper and deeper into magic, and just listen to the last line of the synopsis. There's no such thing as witches, but there will be. Oh, it just kills me. It sounds so good. It's definitely one I am excited about. I think this is definitely one of the books that I want to get for Christmas because the cover's gorgeous again. Anything to do with witches sounds like super fascinating to me at the moment. But also, just that last line. Taglines get me, okay? I'm a simple girl. Give me a pretty cover and a nice tagline and you have my money. It's great. Let us go into a more light-hearted genre and let's move on to contemporary and romance. I did pair both of these up because this is not generally a genre that I read in. The first one is actually, would you guess, if you know me, The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is a book written in verse. It is by a Latinx author, so you know me, I have to include it in here. I'd recommend reading it with your eyes while listening to the audiobook. I feel that is the best way to go. Hearing the passion behind the words, it just changes the game. In this book, we follow Xiomara Batista, who has lived in a very religious household. She has been limited to do a lot of things in her life because of the religious beliefs that surround particularly her mom. However, Xiomara will find the power of words once she joins her school's slam poetry club, and she will refuse to stay silent. But the conversation around being a woman and being Latina and just all of it was so stunning. I started crying on page 5. I had never read a book in verse, so this was just incredible. It's probably one of my favorite books of all time now. Like, I don't think I'll ever shut up about this. I don't think I can find it within myself to not talk about this book. If you're looking for a more hard-hitting romance, adult romance, in fact, that deals a lot with the dynamics of marriage and infertility, I definitely recommend this one. It is one I read earlier in the year and definitely one I adored. I sobbed reading this book so much. It gave me a different outlook into marriages and relationships in general and the dynamics of them. So this is definitely a book I recommend you add this Christmas season to your wish list, and it is All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. In this book, we follow Quinn and Graham, who are a married couple, and this book has dual timelines. We get to see from the past how they met and how their relationship developed, and we see them in their current state with a marriage that is in shambles, and they're trying to put it back together to what it was, but they don't really know how to. And again, the character dynamics in this book and just the conversation surrounding marriage, relationships, and fertility and infertility, and just in general the romance in this book, everything was so nicely crafted. I didn't think I would cry with this book as much as I did, but I was just reading this book and I was not only so frustrated with the characters. This is a book that uses the miscommunication trope to an extent, and the more that I got into the story, it was just fascinating to see how the relationship started and trying to figure out how they got to the point where they are now. And the ending of this book completely destroyed me. Like, I was laying on my couch, my brother was next to me, and my mom was working actually, and I was just sobbing. I was trying to sob silently because I knew my mom was working, and she just turned around, she looked at me and she went, "Melanie, ¿Por qué estás llorando? And I was like, Mom, I'm crying because this book is too much. Another book that I read earlier this year that completely made me crack up, like this book, the banter was so great. Dynamics were just incredible. This book is really the perfect blend between Just Go With It and The Proposal. And I am talking about The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. I have never read anything else Christina Lauren. This is the one and only book I've read by them, and I absolutely adored it. Like, I had a great time. And in this book, we follow Olive, who believes she has chronic bad luck. Nothing can go right with her, and she believes her sister Amy is the opposite of bad luck. She believes Amy is the epitome of the luckiest person in the world. So once her sister actually has a display of the toughest luck ever during her wedding night, Amy actually offers Olive to take over her honeymoon. On the flip end, Amy's husband gives his brother Ethan a spot in the honeymoon as well. So Olive and Ethan, who hate each other with a passion, will now have to go on this honeymoon together. Once they get to this honeymoon, they are determined to stay clear of each other at all costs. Like, they don't want anything to do with the other while they are on this trip. However, circumstances keep bringing them back together where they even have to pretend to be married. It was all such a light-hearted, funny read. I'd recommend this to anyone who loves a good romance, for anyone who enjoys a good contemporary, and who just wants to let loose for a little bit and read about some kind of rivalry that could possibly turn into love. I love me the messiness. I love me the drama. I have heard about this book left and right. I know a lot of people have already read this. I, however, have not. I don't own this. But just the unlikely scenario of what would happen if the United States, instead of being a democracy, would have a crown. And it is actually American Royals by Catherine McGee. What would happen if George Washington, instead of being put as the president of the United States, would have been given a crown? Why does that sound so interesting to me? It sounds so messy. I'm here for it. So this book takes place 2.5 centuries after Washington was crowned, and the Washington family still holds the throne in the US. And I believe we specifically follow the princess who's called Beatrice, and she may very well be the first queen that the US has. And then on the flip end, we have Princess Samantha, which I don't know if she's older or younger. I'm guessing by how the hierarchy works that she's younger. Based on the synopsis, she is pining over the one guy she cannot have, who's completely off limits. And then we have Samantha's twin, who's called Prince Jefferson. The cleverness of Catherine McGee, I swear, I want to read this book so bad. And if he would have been born years before his sister did, he would have been the heir to the throne. However, that is not how their system works, and there are two people also vying for his heart. This just sounds like a lot of drama. It reminds me, what was this show that came out years ago that had the boy from Narnia? Wasn't it called Royals too? It just reminds me of that, and I am here for the messiness. I am here for the tea. I want to read this book so bad. It just sounds so good. And it is like a contemporary, like young adult romance. Sounds so good. It sounds incredible. Let me bring this back home to hard-hitting contemporaries, because if I were to read a contemporary, I'd usually read a hard-hitting one. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I love me contemporaries that just have deeper topics in them, that include very important themes, that raise important conversation. So I hope you don't mind me bringing forth two hard-hitting ones. First one is The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed. Based on the synopsis of this book, this one will go a little bit deeper into the issues of race, class, and violence through the eyes of a wealthy black teenager whose family gets caught up in the Rodney King riots of 1992. Ashley Bennett and her group of friends are living the best life. However, once 4 LAPD officers are acquitted after hitting a black man named Rodney King half to death, Ashley is no longer one of the cool kids. Instead, she is classified as one of the black kids. Oh my god, okay, I'm tearing up. Why am I tearing up? Oh my god. You know when a synopsis just gets to you and you know this is probably going to become one of your favorite books? Just listen to the last portion of the synopsis. As violent protests engulf LA and the city burns, Ashley tries to continue on as if life were normal. With her world splintering around her, Ashley, along with the rest of LA, is left to question who is the us and who is the them. I just love me me a hard-hitting contemporary. The cover for this book is also stunning. It just sounds like such a great story, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about this book, and so I just wanted to bring it to your radar and hopefully something that you'll be interested in. And then last but not least, in this contemporary romance section, I have How It All Blew Up by Arveen Amati. I know this is one of Monty's favorite books. I know he recommends this book all the time, and actually when I went on to Goodreads, I saw he said it was required reading, and honestly anything that Monty loves, I will be down to read. Again, hard-hitting contemporary that just feels like it'll hit close to home. We follow 18-year-old Amir Azadi, who knew that growing up in a Muslim family would be very difficult. However, he never thought it would end in an airport interrogation room. With so many different things going on in his life, he truly thinks that the best way to escape all of this is going on a trip to Rome. Now that he is used to this new life in Rome and he makes new friends and he starts going on dates on the Sistine Chapel, he thinks life is at the top of its game. However, it all comes down when his old life comes knocking on the door, and now he has to retell all of these events to a US Customs officer. It again just sounds like such a wonderful read. I am honestly so excited for this book. All right, let's go into the sci-fi, the science fiction section of the video. If you guys know, I'm not a big sci-fi reader. I am gonna try and get more into this in 2021. I feel like as of lately, I've been more fascinated by the genre than I've ever been. Cheating the system a little bit with this one, but if you're into graphic novels, I wanted to include a little bit in here, and it is categorized as a sci-fi. It's very sci-fi. It is very mature and graphic, so just mind that. But I'm talking about Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. I read this again in my 24-hour readathon, and I just loved this. We follow soldiers from opposing sides of a war, and they fell in love with each other, and the girl actually gets pregnant, and that breeds conflict into this war, and they are now being chased by different sides of it to essentially get rid of them and make sure that they don't set an example for everyone else. And they are now on the run trying to raise this kid, trying to keep each other safe in a world that will not let them. The illustrations in this are stunning. Like, I love the use of color in this graphic novel and the way that it utilizes more muted colors, and it only uses those really bright colors to signify the really important moments, the really shocking parts of the graphic novel, and everything about the story was so immersive. It was giving me major Star Wars vibes, I have to be honest, with like the different creatures from different planets, but then it also kind of crosses over with Game of Thrones in the sense of the mature aspect of it. The next one is a dystopian, and I put this in here because the majority of dystopians, if not all of them, have so many sci-fi elements to them that it's hard to not call them sci-fi. I'm talking about Scythe by Neil Shusterman, the Arc of the Scythe, the trilogy. Let me pull up the entire thing. The Arc of the Scythe by Neil Shusterman. Now I'm gonna put all of these down because the third book is really heavy. In Scythe, we have this futuristic world where hunger is no longer a thing, and war is no longer a thing, and people can no longer die of natural causes. The only way that people can die is if a scythe gleans them, and the scythes are these figures again in this world that have trained in order to take people's lives away, and this process is very much randomized. The story really kicks in once Rowan and Citra are offered an opportunity to enter the scythedom into an apprenticeship, and they now have to learn the art of gleaning and what it truly means to have this job that is so exclusive. The world of this book is so nicely done. Like, it's ridiculous how good this world is. Not only that, the writing was destroying me. The book shifts between present time. It also contains a little bit of flashbacks, but then it also has journal entries. Let me see if I can find one. And we have journal entries by sites that just raise so much conversation on how the world works and what would happen if we as humanity were to reach a point like this in society. It is just so well done. I have a spoiler-free review of this. I will leave it linked down below if you want to know a little bit more. Next up, I have one that I know people have loved. I am excited about this book because I need to know what the hype is about, okay? And Sydney from Sid Bookworm said the one sentence that would hook me into any sci-fi, and that is, First Contact with Aliens. So definitely what I'm excited about, and it is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. We follow Kira Novares, who has dreamed of new worlds. However, she has awakened something unknowingly. During a routine survey mission on an uncolonized planet, she found an alien relic. Her excitement quickly turns into terror, however, once she picks that up and it starts moving. Now a war erupts among the stars, and Kira will embark on this new journey of transformation and discovery where she will question what it truly means to be human. And it just sounds incredible. The synopsis literally says, First Contact is not all she thought it'd be. Oh my god, am I excited about this book. I know Christopher Paolini wrote the Aragon series. I have not read that. I was not an Aragon kid growing up. And I've never really been into sci-fi. Like, I have watched sci-fi movies, don't get me wrong, I've enjoyed them. The cover is stunning. We love big books over here. I know this is over 800 pages. You did that, and I haven't even read the book, but you did that. And the last one on my list is actually Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Now, I know this book is kind of fantasy as well, but I think this gives me more of a sci-fi feel. I may be completely off, and this may be like truly fantasy, but from what I've heard, it would fall under the category of sci-fi as well. Listen to this. Connect with me, okay? A god will return when the earth and sky converge under the black sun. Listen to me, okay? Let's talk about this. The book is set on the holy city of Tova, where the winter solstice is always cause of celebration. However, this year it clashes with the solar eclipse that was predicted by a priest to be the unbalance of the world. I'm just gonna read this because if not, I'm gonna butcher it. Meanwhile, a ship launches from a distant city bound for Tova and set to arrive on the solstice. The captain of the ship, Ciala, is a disgraced teak whose song can calm the waters around her as easily as it can warp a man's mind. Her ship carries one passenger, described as harmless. The passenger, Serapio, is a young man, blind, scarred, and cloaked in destiny. As Ciala well knows, when a man is described as harmless, he usually ends up as a villain. I don't know what it is about goths coming back after years of inactiveness, just is so fascinating to me. I don't know what it is, but it's got me hooked from that line. And then this event that could possibly be detrimental to everyone, I'm just hooked. There's spaceships, which I don't know why. I usually am not like into this kind of thing, but spaceships, suns, moons, war between galaxies, whatever, I am into that right now. So I am excited for Black Sun. I know Kay from I Love Books Okay absolutely adored Black Sun. So if they loved it, I will trust them because I trust Kay, okay? So I think we all should jump on that bandwagon because it sounds incredible. Will it be a villain? I don't know. I need to find out. Now for the thriller horror section of the video, which will be the last section of the video, in fact. Let us start light with the first recommendation. It is a YA thriller that I cannot find myself shutting up about. It is impossible. I loved the first book. I own the second book now. I bought it recently, and I cannot wait to carry on with the trilogy. Was it by? I totally forgot who wrote this. And I am talking about the Truly Devious trilogy by Maureen Johnson. And in Truly Devious, we follow Stevie Bell, who is a huge lover of true crime. She loves Agatha Christie. She loves Sherlock Holmes, and that is something that she'd very much like to do for a living. And she receives an invitation to Ellingham Academy, which is this very prestigious yet mysterious academy that is only for the best of the best. It is on invite only. And once she receives this invitation, she is convinced she will attend, not only because she thinks that they will offer a lot towards her education, because there is this unsolved mystery, this cold case that involves the founder, which happened 80 years in the past. Now, Stevie is hell-bent on figuring out this mystery, on solving it herself. For a YA thriller, it left me shook, like all over the place. I got the creeps reading this book, which for a YA thriller is very unconventional, but the way that the book was crafted, not only with the dual timelines, because it does tell you how the crime happened 80 years in the past, but it also allows you to see Stevie present time in the academy. But it was so fascinating to see that, but also see see how the letters from Truly Devious were written and crafted and presented to these characters. All so intriguing, so mysterious, and I feel like it was such a well-crafted mystery. I loved the first book so much, which is why I want to jump into the second book as soon as possible. An adult thriller, however, that I absolutely adored. Like, this book raised so much interesting conversation that surrounds rape culture and the way that society as a whole has a very cruel way of looking at rape victims. Like, the conversation was not only so interesting, but it was also so respectful. I adored this book. It is The Night Swim by Megan Golden. This book for me is truly one of the best thrillers I read this year. Like, oh my god, if you could not tell by the way that I tapped this book, it is also annotated. I adore this, and I know Megan Golden has another book out called The Escape Room, if I'm not mistaken. In this book, we follow Rachel, who is the host of a true crime podcast, and her podcast kicked off once she found unintentionally a piece of evidence when she was covering a cold case. Once that happens, she feels that she needs to up the level of her podcast. So she decides to go to this town and cover a case that is happening present time because she wants to make her listeners feel like they are in the courtroom as this trial happens. Said case is a rape trial, and that is where the interesting conversation arises. But on top of that, Rachel has been getting these strange letters on the windshield of her car on her hotel room. So somebody is following her and leaving her these strange notes behind, trying to convince her and asking for her help to solve a case that happened many years in the past to this person's sister. This book was just so nice. I ate this book up when I read it. Like, I couldn't really stop reading. The plot twists in the book, like, they have a way of being predictable and unpredictable all at the same time, because you start questioning your theories to the point where it drives you away from them, and that may or may not be the thing that actually ends up being the plot twist. It was a really immersive journey. Like, I adored this one, okay? This is an unconventional recommendation because if you saw my wrap up from November, you'd know I gave this book 3 stars. However, this is one book that although I gave a 3-star, I know there's a lot of people out there who may or may not love this book equally as I did, or even more than I did, because of the conversation that it brings forth about race and racism and then colonization. Like, just so many great themes in this book, and not only that, but the way that these characters are constructed. I have never read more complex characters in my life, and I am talking about Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. The atmosphere was stunning. It is a gothic horror, so again, it's more about the atmosphere, it's more about those romantic elements, so it's not typical jump scare horror. And we follow Noemi Tawala as she receives a letter from her newlywed cousin asking for her aid in this new house that she lives in, which is called High Place, which is in the outskirts of Mexico. And Noemi will go to High Place to try and find out what is happening to her cousin in that house. Once she is there, she will make an ally of the youngest son in the family, which is an unlikely choice. And things will go down in that house which are weird, okay? That's the best way that I can explain it. It's just weird. Definitely one that I think you should pick up. Now for like a real horror book, or at least that's the way that I think this book is gonna go down, is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. Still a book that I haven't read. I own it, so I will be reading it soon. Perhaps not in December. I don't know if I want to be spooked in December, but definitely one I am picking up maybe January. This does include the trope of a book within a book, which I personally find super fascinating. I think it brings an element of dual timelines and another element of like mixed media, if you will, that just adds more complexity to the story. And I'm intrigued into how this is gonna go down. It says, bells that ring themselves, record players that turn on and play music to empty rooms, ghosts that climb out of wardrobes. And in this book, we follow Maggie Holt, who does not believe in any of those things. In fact, she is very much a skeptic, which is ironic because those same things are the ones that made her family famous. 25 years in the past, alongside her mom and her dad, they used to live in this manor, this mansion that made her family famous because her dad actually put out, I think, a memoir of sorts sorts, recounting his experiences within this household where paranormal stuff would happen. Now, present time Maggie returns to this manor to actually flip it for sale, and once she is there, strange things start occurring that may lead her to believe that what her father wrote in that memoir may not be as much of a lie as she thought it was. It kind of gives me like Hill House vibes, like the TV show, so maybe we'll see what happens, but I am intrigued. Also, the fact that the cover is like green, it's like electric green with like lime green. I'm here for it. It's just a vibe. Kind of creepy though. That chandelier does not look that pleasing. And then the last book on the thriller horror category of the video, which I have on my radar as well. I'm actually really pumped to read this one day, and it is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. And according to the synopsis, this is a tale of revenge, cultural identity, and the cost of breaking from tradition. And this book is supposed to bring a lot of social commentary forth because we do follow 4 American Indian men who, after a disturbing event that took place in their youth, are trying to run away from something that threatens their lives. They are being tracked by an entity driven by revenge, and they are pretty helpless as the culture and traditions that they left behind are now running to catch up with them. I recently watched Kayla's from Books and Lala's video on the Goodreads horror nominees when she read almost all of them. This was one of the ones that she read, and it just sounds so incredible. She was saying that this book was genuinely spooking her, and I am just fascinated to see what exactly this entails in the book. So I'm just ready for this one. I also don't hear a lot of people talking about this book. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And those are all the books that I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this helps you all kind of narrow down what books to add to your wish list. I try to not go for my obvious choices. I try to include books that again are on my own radar for this holiday season. Comment down below what books on this video intrigue you the most, or if you have read any of them, please let me know down below. I want to know all of your thoughts. If you reach the end of the video, leave down below maybe a gift emoji, a Santa emoji, either or. I feel like it's the vibe of this video. If you have yet to subscribe, don't forget to do so down below for more bookish content. Again, I am uploading a little bit more in December. I am also going to be live streaming more 2 times a week on Wednesdays and Fridays for my weekly reading sprints. You can also follow me on all of my social medias, which are always linked down below. Twitter is probably the place to be. That is where I'm most active. I don't know, but you can follow me everywhere. It's all linked down below. My Amazon wish list is also linked down below. You can find all the deets, okay? And yeah, I love you all so much. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tonight because there are sprints because it's Wednesday. So yeah, I'll see you then. Okay? Okay. Bye guys.